Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Great Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Well, here it is, another Wednesday, and for part 2 of my 3-part series on why I don't believe in the Bible, we have today why the Bible is ridiculous. The ridiculous stories that are contained in the Bible and why they just don't hold water, why they don't float, so to speak. Why Noah's Ark doesn't float, and why the other Bible stories don't hold water either. Well, to start out with, there's the very first story in the Bible, which was the creation story. We are to believe that they separated the waters that were above from the waters that were below, and above the firmament from the waters that were below. And the firmament is where the stars are. So we're supposed to believe that water comes from above the stars. That's just one example. There's another example, is that he created light before he created the stars, and he created plants on earth before he created the sun. That is, and the fact that it took him 3 days to create the earth, and then it took this supposed God 1 day to create the stars, when there's octillions of stars in the universe. I'd say that that's not a very good story. It's not very legitimate and not very convincing. If it took 3 days to create the earth and only 1 day to create the octillions of stars in our universe. So I don't believe in the creation story at all. It just doesn't hold water. I don't buy it, and I think it's ridiculous. I really do. I really think it's absolutely ludicrous. It is ridiculous. Okay? So, no, nix on the creation story in the Bible. Also, there's the story of Noah's Ark and the flood, Ask yourself this: what happened to all that water? If the earth was covered to water to a height of above 20 feet above every mountain on earth, what happened to all that water? Did it drain into oblivion? Did it go back into the earth's core? Where did the water go? The water had to go somewhere. And the Bible doesn't explain where the water went. It just says that the water came down, and it took time for the water to go down again. And we're supposed to believe this BS. I don't buy it. And think about the animals on the ark. There would have been over 2 million animals on the ark, because that's all accounts for all the variations of animals on earth. There's so many variations of animals on earth that even if you cut out all of the extra variations, all of the extras, and just have a base number of animals, there's over 2 million animals. And how in the world could only 8 people that were on the ark take care of all those animals? It just doesn't make sense. And here's another thing: where did they get enough food for all the animals? I mean, the elephants would have required thousands of pounds of food, and so would the tigers would have required 16,000 pounds of meat. Where did all that meat come from? And where did all the food for the elephants come from? There is none. So that story doesn't hold water. And also, if the ark was elevated to a high elevation, the animals would have all frozen to death from the high elevation of the ark. And we know that there's many more things, like how did you get the animals to behave going onto the ark? What happened when there aren't enough animals for enough genetic variation for a species, that there would have been severe genetic defects from inbreeding of the animals, and because there's only two of every kind. And what about the all the plants are gone? All the plants on Earth are gone. So that's a stupid story, because all the plants are gone. What would the animals have to eat? They'd have nothing to eat with all the plants gone. So this is just an example. This is a short example. Plus, all the fish would have died because the salt water would have mixed with fresh water, and that would have killed all the sea life. So, and of course, there wouldn't have been as much sun penetrating the water from above, because the water would have been very deep. So that would have killed all the fish, especially coral reef fish would have died instantly, and the freshwater fish would have died because there would have been salt water mixed in. So all the fish would have died, and it makes no sense. The story makes no sense at all. There's nothing about the story that makes any sense. So the story is stupid, and that's another one. But there's another one that's really stupid, and that's the story of Joshua. Joshua supposedly killed people, all the people, men, women, and children, in 30 cities. How could he destroy 30 cities all single-handedly? It doesn't seem probable. It seems like he would have been beaten at some point. But they said that he was commanded to kill all the people in 30 cities, and we're supposed to believe that. And another thing that's stupid about Joshua is the walls of Jericho falling down. They claim that God knocked the walls down. Well, I don't buy it for 1 second. I don't buy that the walls of Jericho fell because God commanded them to, and I don't believe that them marching around the walls and blowing on trumpets would have made the walls fall down either. I just don't buy that story. And another story is that God wrote the 10 Commandments out on 2 stone tablets with his own finger. That God wrote the tablets himself, and that they were from God. Well, I don't believe that. I don't buy that for even a second. But there's some Jews that believe it, and they think that God wrote on the tablets themselves by himself and inscribed the tablets. Well, I don't buy that story either. So there's a bunch of stories that are not believable at all in the Bible, and there's more, in fact, but I can't go into them right now. But I will read to you a list of top 20 evil Bible stories. Top 20 evil Bible stories. I'll read these to you now. They're on commonsenseatheism.com. And you can find this list of 20 evil Bible stories on commonsenseatheism.com. Number 1, God drowns the whole earth. In Genesis 7, verses 21 to 23, God drowns the entire population of the earth. Men, women, children, fetuses, and perhaps unicorns. Only a single family survives. In Matthew 24, verses 37 to 42, gentle Jesus approves of this genocide and plans to repeat it when he returns. 2, God kills 500,000 people. In 2 Chronicles 13, verses 15 through 18, God helps the men of Judah kill 500,000 of their fellow Israelites. 3, God slaughters all Egyptian firstborn. In Exodus 12, verse 29, God the baby killer slaughters all Egyptian firstborn children and cattle because their king was stubborn. Number 4, God kills 14,000 people for complaining that God keeps killing them. In Numbers 16, verses 41 to 49, the Israelites complain that God is killing too many of them. So God sends a plague that kills 14,000 more of them. Genocide after genocide after genocide. In Joshua 6, verses 20 to 21, God helps the Israelites destroy Jericho, killing men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, and donkeys. In Deuteronomy 2, verses 32 to 35, God has the Israelites kill everyone in Heshbon, including children. In Deuteronomy 3, verses 3 through 7, God has the Israelites do the same to the people of Bashan. In Numbers 31, verses 7 through 18, the Israelites kill all of the Midianites except for the virgins, whom they take as spoils of war. In 1 Samuel 15, verses 1 through 9, God tells the Israelites to kill all the Amalekites, men, women, children, infants, and their cattle, for something the Amalekites' ancestors had done 400 years earlier. 6. God kills 50,000 people for curiosity. In 1 Samuel 6, verses 19, God kills 50,000 men for peeking into the Ark of the Covenant. Newer cosmetic translations count only 70 deaths, but their text notes admit the best and earliest manuscripts put the number at 50,070. 7. 3,000 Israelites killed for inventing a god. In Exodus 32, Moses has climbed Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments. The Israelites are bored, so they invent a golden calf god. Moses comes back and God commands him, each man strap a sword to his side. Go back and forth through the camp from one end to the other, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor. About 3,000 people died. The Amorites destroyed by sword and by God's rocks. In Joshua 10, verses 10 through 11, God helps the Israelites slaughter the Amorites by sword, then finishes them off with rocks from the sky. Number 9, God burns 2 cities to death. In Genesis 19, verses 24, God kills everyone in Sodom and Gomorrah with fire from the sky. Then God kills Lot's wife for looking back at her burning home, and he supposedly turns her into a pillar of salt, if you can believe that. That's another ridiculous Bible story. Number 10, God has 42 children mauled by bears. In 2 Kings 2, verses 23 to 24, some kids tease the prophet Elisha, and God sends bears to dismember them. Newer cosmetic translations say the bears maul the children, but the original Hebrew, baka, means to tear apart. Number 11, a tribe slaughtered and their virgins raped for not showing up at roll call. In Judges 21, verses 1 through 23, a tribe of Israelites misses roll call, so the other Israelites kill them all except for the virgins, which they take for themselves. Still not happy, they hide in vineyards and pounce on dancing women from Shiloh to take them for themselves. 12. 3,000 crushed to death. In Judges 16, verses 27 to 30, God gives Samson strength to bring down a building to crush 3,000 members of a rival tribe. Number 13, a concubine raped and dismembered. In Judges 19, verses 22 to 29, a mob demands to rape a godly master's guest. The master offers his daughter and a concubine to them instead. They take the concubine and gang rape her all night. The master finds her on his doorstep in the morning, cuts her into 12 pieces, and ships the pieces around the country. Number 14, child sacrifice. In Judges 11, verses 30 through 39, Jephthah burns his daughter alive as a sacrificial offering for God's favor in killing the Ammonites. Number 15, God helps Samson kill 30 men because he lost a bet. In Judges 14, verses 11 through 19, Samson loses a bet for 30 sets of clothes. The Spirit of God comes upon him, and he kills 30 men to steal their clothes and pay off the debt. 16. God commands you to kill your wife and children for worshiping other gods. In Deuteronomy 13, verses 6 through 10, God commands that you must kill your wife, children, brother, and friend if they worship other gods. Number 17, God incinerates 51 men to make a point. In 2 Kings 1, verses 9 through 10, Elijah gets God to burn 51 men with fire from heaven to prove he is God. Let's see here. Number 18, God kills a man for not impregnating his brother's widow. In Genesis 38, verses 9 through 10, God kills a man for refusing to impregnate his brother's widow. Number 19, God threatens forced cannibalism. In Leviticus 26, verses 27 through 29, and Jeremiah 19, verses 9, God threatens to punish the Israelites by making them eat their own children. Number 20, the coming slaughter. According to Revelation 9, verses 7 through 19, God's got more evil coming. God will make horse-like locusts with human heads and scorpion tails who torture people for 9 months. Then some angels will kill 1/3 of the earth's population. If he came today, that would be 2 billion people. Now, Christians have spent thousands of years coming up with excuses for a loving God that would allow or create such evil. In fact, they've come up with 12 basic responses, which are the subject of the tale of the 12 officers. And I will skip that. So, that is the story. And if you would like to know more, just look up on the internet evil Bible stories, and you'll get a whole bunch of evil Bible stories that you can read for yourself and to see just how ridiculous they are, just how evil, ridiculous, and crude they are, and how crude the authors of the Bible were, and how primitive they were, and how stupid they were. You can get a good idea just by picking up a Bible and reading it for yourself. That's one of the reasons that I don't believe in the Bible. Next week, I will have part 3 of my 3-part series on why I don't believe in the Bible.